Callie Jensen sneezed so loudly in the middle of the crowded subway platform that 3 pigeons took off in alarm, and half the commuters turned to stare. "Bless you," a deep voice said beside her. Sniffling, half embarrassed and half dying from the spring pollen attacking her sinuses, Callie turned her head and froze. A man stood there, tall and tired-looking, holding out a crumpled tissue from his coat pocket. He had a little boy on his hip, maybe 4 years old, with a mismatched pair of sneakers and chocolate smeared across his cheek. The man's dark blue flannel shirt was wrinkled, his hair a mess, and the strap of a well-worn backpack was slipping off his shoulder. "Thanks," she said, taking the tissue. "Sorry, that was violent, sounded like it came from your soul," he joked, adjusting the kid on his hip. "You okay? Just allergies." "You and me both. I think we're losing the war." The little boy looked up at her. "My dad says tissues are magic." "He says they fix everything." Callie smiled, crouching to the boy's eye level. "Is that right?" The boy nodded. "I'm Finn, I'm 4.5. Hi, Finn, I'm Callie." The man adjusted the strap on his shoulder and offered her a sheepish smile. "I'm Flynn." "Sorry, he's a talker. Clearly runs in the family," she said, grinning. Flynn laughed, and for the first time she noticed how tired his eyes were yet how kind. His jaw was covered in stubble, and there was a rip in his jeans. Still, he had this quiet, genuine way about him. And the way he held his son protective, one-armed, instinctively pulling him in when the train whooshed by made something flicker in her chest. The train doors opened, and they stepped inside. It was packed. Callie grabbed the overhead rail, and Flynn shifted so Finn was tucked in between them, sitting on the seat now. Flynn stayed standing, swaying with the motion of the train. "So where are you headed?" she asked. "Job interview," he said. "Third one this week." Fingers crossed, she felt her eyebrows lift. With Finn, he gave a one-shouldered shrug. "Couldn't find a sitter today. I usually don't bring him, but life." Something about the way he said it rough, honest, not fishing for pity made her heart pinch. "What about you?" he asked. "Work." "Midtown?" "Oh yeah. What do you do?" Callie hesitated. She didn't exactly like leading with "I'm the CEO of a multi-million-dollar marketing firm that basically owns half the billboards in Times Square." People either got weird or suddenly remembered her last name from a Forbes article. So she just smiled and said, "Marketing," he nodded. "That's cool. I used to work in construction, but after Finn's mom left, I've been trying to find something that fits better with, solo parenting life." Callie's chest tightened. He said it so simply. No drama. No bitterness, just a man doing his absolute best. Finn kicked his feet and looked up at her. "You have a kid?" "Nope, just a dog, but he acts like a toddler," Finn giggled. "What's his name?" "Moose." "That's a funny name," Flynn smiled, and Callie felt her stomach flip. They talked the rest of the ride. About dogs, construction work, that weird guy who plays the saxophone in Union Square, and whether or not peanut butter and jelly sandwiches were overrated. Flynn was funny in a dry, warm way. And real. He didn't try to impress her. He didn't ask for anything. When they got off at the same stop, Callie walked with them, not ready for the conversation to end. Flynn paused outside a sleek office building. "This is me," she said. He looked up at it, clearly surprised. "Whoa, fancy." "Yeah, the coffee's awful though," he hesitated. "Hey, listen. This is probably dumb, but thanks for talking to me. It's not always easy, She looked at him, really looked. The scuffed shoes, the worry lines around his eyes, the way he held Finn like his whole world depended on it. "Not dumb at all," she said softly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a receipt. "I don't have a real business card, but if you ever want to grab coffee, cheap coffee, I'd like that." Callie took the receipt, her fingers brushing his. "You should know," she said. "I'm not really a cheap coffee kind of girl." Flynn laughed. "I figured that out when I saw your heels." She smiled and walked away, heart racing. Inside the building, her assistant nearly knocked over her coffee when she walked in. "Miss Jensen, your 9 o'clock is waiting and boardroom B is prepped. Also, your brother called about the gala, and Callie was still holding the crumpled receipt. She couldn't stop smiling. Later that night, she looked up the name he'd scribbled, Flynn Archer. No social media, no LinkedIn. Just one old GoFundMe from 3 years ago titled, "Help Me Keep My Son." She closed her laptop, heart heavy and strange. Callie Jensen had no idea why her heart was doing somersaults over a struggling dad with chocolate on his shirt, but she was definitely falling. Callie stepped into the rooftop lounge of the Langston Hotel, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The city was just beginning to glow as the sun dipped behind the skyline, and the soft hum of conversation floated above the jazz notes curling through the air. She kept her expression poised, but her mind wasn't on the client cocktail hour unfolding around her. She hadn't stopped thinking about him since yesterday, Flynn Archer, the man with the soft eyes and worn backpack who'd handed her a tissue like it was a lifeline. A man too proud to ask for help and too decent to pretend he didn't need any. She turned to her assistant, Leela, who was arranging name tags on a velvet-draped table. "Do we have a list of final donations for the Youth Housing Initiative?" Callie asked, keeping her voice low. Leela handed her a printed sheet. "We're short by 22,000. The city grant fell through. Callie's jaw tightened. "I'll cover it," quietly. "Through the foundation," Leela hesitated. "You've already," I said quietly. Leela nodded and walked away, though not without glancing back once. Callie didn't budge. She wasn't about to let a bunch of bankers shrug off responsibility for kids sleeping on concrete. Her eyes moved over the crowd. Mostly donors and board members, all sipping cocktails and pretending they cared about the programs they rarely visited. She hated these events, but she showed up because she'd built the empire that could fund them, and yet, for the first time, she wished she were anywhere else. She checked her watch. It had been 23 hours since she met Flynn, not that she was counting. The elevator chimed. She looked up and almost dropped her glass. Flynn stepped out, holding Finn's hand. He was wearing a black button-down that didn't quite fit across his shoulders and jeans that had clearly been ironed in a hurry. Finn was in a tiny collared shirt, his hair combed neatly to the side. Callie blinked. How Flynn saw her, visibly froze and then ushered Finn over to the side before walking toward her. "Okay, I swear I'm not stalking you," he said quickly, hands half raised. "I got a call this morning from a woman named Leela. She said someone submitted my name for a part-time facilities position here. I didn't put in an application." Callie's heart thudded. "You came with Finn." "I didn't have a choice. I figured if it was some scam, I'd at least be in a public place," she exhaled. "You're not being scammed." "I sent your name." He looked at her, stunned. "I own the building," she said simply. "And the nonprofit that runs the youth initiative on the lower floors is hiring." Flynn folded his arms. "You said you worked in marketing." "I do, for a company I built, which also happens to fund 12 youth programs across the city, including the one you're standing in right now." He looked away, jaw flexing. "So, what, you felt bad for me?" "No," she said. "I didn't feel bad. I saw someone who's doing everything he can for his kid. And I had the ability to open a door." Flynn's eyes narrowed. "You should have told me who you were." "Would you have come if I had?" He didn't answer. Finn tugged at his sleeve. "Dad, are we staying?" Flynn crouched down. "Not yet, bud." "Let's wait a minute, okay?" Callie knelt too, meeting Finn's gaze. "There's a table over there with juice boxes and mini grilled cheese. You can sit if it's okay with your dad." Finn looked up. "Can I?" Flynn nodded, and Finn ran over, sliding into a chair. Flynn stood and turned back to her. "So what is this?" he asked. His voice wasn't angry, just confused. "You meet some guy on a subway and hand him a job like it's a coupon?" "I didn't hand you anything," Callie said. "You still have to interview, you have to pass a background check, you have to show up. But I opened a door. That's it, you don't have to walk through it." He looked at his son, who was currently sipping from a juice box like it was champagne. Flynn sighed. "I'm not used to people doing things without wanting something back." Callie's voice softened. "I don't want anything." He looked at her again, but this time it wasn't guarded, it was something else. Wariness wrapped in quiet gratitude. "All right," he said. "Then I'll walk through the door, but I'm not a charity case." "I never thought you were." He gave a small nod, barely perceptible. Then he turned and walked toward the hiring table where one of her program directors was waiting. Callie watched him go, heart pounding. Leela appeared beside her. "I hope you know what you're doing." Callie didn't answer. She couldn't explain the pull she felt toward him, the way her world, usually so regimented, had tilted slightly after one subway ride. Later that night, after most of the guests had left and the rooftop was quiet, She found herself staring out at the skyline. Behind her, a voice spoke. I don't know who taught you to grill cheese that well, but my kid's going to be spoiled forever. She turned. Flynn was there, Finn asleep in his arms. I passed the first round, he said. They want me to come in Monday for the orientation, she smiled. Good, he hesitated. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. He looked at her like he wanted to say something else, but he just adjusted Finn in his arms and nodded. When he walked away, Callie felt something shift deep in her chest. She wasn't falling, she already had. Callie pushed open the glass door of the youth center's ground floor office, her heels clicking against the tile as she stepped inside. The scent of fresh paint and lemon cleaner hung in the air, but it was the sound of laughter from down the hall that caught her attention. She glanced toward the rec room and spotted Flynn crouched beside a broken foosball table, a screwdriver in one hand and a half-eaten granola bar in the other. Two teenage boys hovered nearby, watching with interest. Callie raised an eyebrow. Most people ease into their first week. You're already fixing the furniture, Flynn looked up, then straightened. Couldn't help it. The handle was jammed, and one of the kids said it's been like that for weeks. She leaned against the doorway. So you decided to play maintenance man, too? Old habits die hard, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. Besides, I like working with my hands, make sense of the world. The boys drifted away with a nod, leaving them alone. Callie stepped inside, glancing at the scattered bolts on the floor. I came by to check in on the new literacy program, but I figured I might run into you. Flynn offered a half smile. You always do your own check-ins, only when I want the truth. He looked at her then, holding her gaze longer than he had before. I can see that. Callie crouched beside the table, picking up a stray screw. So how's it going so far? Flynn leaned back against the wall. Better than I expected. The staff's good, kids are sharp, and Finn loves the daycare upstairs. He told me he's marrying a girl named Zoe because she shared her crackers. Callie grinned. He moves fast. He gets it from his mother, Flynn said, then paused. She used to fall for people in a heartbeat, didn't always end well. Callie's smile faded. You've never mentioned her. Not really. Flynn sat on the edge of the table. She left when Finn was still teething, said she wasn't cut out for it. I think she wanted something bigger, something easier. I don't blame her anymore. Parenting's not for the faint of heart. Callie studied him. You make it look like second nature. He gave a small shrug. I've made enough mistakes to learn a few things, like how to cut sandwiches into dinosaurs and when not to push a tantrum, but it's still hard. Every day, she nodded slowly. I didn't grow up with much stability. My parents argued more than they parented. I used to think if I could build something successful enough, I could control the chaos, but it never really works like that. Flynn tilted his head. You're the most composed person I've ever met, but you're saying you built an empire out of what? Fear, she met his eyes, out of necessity. He was quiet for a moment, then said, that makes sense. You see things before they break, like this table or people. Callie looked away. I'm not great at fixing them, though. He stood up. You don't have to fix everything. Some people just need someone to sit with them while they figure it out. When she looked back at him, there was a stillness between them, quiet, but charged. She stood. I have a meeting in 20 minutes with the city council on housing permits. But if you're free after, I'd like to show you something. Flynn raised an eyebrow. Is it another broken appliance? No, she said. It's the rooftop I'm converting into a community garden. I think it could use someone who knows how to work with their hands. He hesitated, then nodded. All right. She scribbled the address on a post-it from the front desk and handed it to him before walking out. That evening, Flynn showed up right on time, Finn in tow, this time with a tiny watering can clutched in his hands like a prized possession. The rooftop was mostly unfinished soil bags stacked in corners, raised beds only half assembled, but the view was golden in the late sunlight. Flynn looked around. You don't do anything halfway, do you? Callie knelt beside a planter box. No one ever gave me half of anything. So I don't see the point. Finn ran to the far corner and began filling an empty pot with dirt, humming to himself. Flynn watched him for a moment. He's different here, calmer. I think maybe this is the first time I've felt like we both belong somewhere. Callie looked up. You do? He turned toward her. You mean that? Yes. The silence stretched between them again, but this time it was softer. Flynn stepped closer. I don't know what this is, with you, but it's the first thing in a long time that doesn't feel like survival. Callie's chest tightened. It scares me. Good, he said. Means it's real. She reached for his hand. He let her. Above them, the city pulsed. But down below, in the dirt and the sun and the quiet miracle of something new, it felt like the beginning of something deeply rooted. And for once, Callie didn't need to control it. Flynn stood just outside the glass atrium of Callie's penthouse, Finn's small hand tangled in his. The building rose like a crown above the city, its edges softened by the sky's deep blue and the amber glow of the setting sun. Finn craned his neck, marveling at the chandelier flickering through the glass. "Are you sure we're in the right place?" Flynn asked, eyeing the doorman who had greeted them by name. Callie appeared inside the atrium, barefoot, holding a linen apron dusted with flour. She opened the door with a quiet smile. "You're exactly where you're supposed to be." Finn darted past her the moment she stepped aside, drawn to the table set near the windows. It was low to the ground and scattered with Lego pieces, coloring books, and a plate of sliced strawberries. Flynn followed her into the open-plan kitchen, where the scent of fresh rosemary and garlic hung in the air. "You cooked?" he asked, surprised. "I bake when I'm nervous," she said, sliding a tray into the oven. "And I figured you've had enough takeout this week." Flynn leaned against the counter. "Why nervous?" She wiped her hands and met his gaze. "Because I've spent my life making people sign contracts, not trusting them with things that matter." He didn't speak right away. Instead, he glanced around the space, noticing the details. The framed sketch of a quiet street corner, the herb pots on the windowsill, the piano in the corner with a single sheet of music resting on it. "Is that yours?" he asked, nodding toward the piano. "My mother's," she said. "She taught me one song before things fell apart. I haven't played it since." Flynn stepped closer, his voice low. "What was the song?" "Moon River." She said it reminded her of the life she never got to live. Callie turned away after a moment and began plating the food. "I wanted tonight to be simple. Just dinner. No boardrooms, no interviews, no expectations." Flynn helped her carry the plates to the dining table, where candles flickered between dishes of roasted vegetables and lemon chicken. Finn was already humming to himself, half asleep beside his empty plate. After dinner, Flynn carried Finn into the guest room Callie had prepared, its walls decorated with stars and planets, a small nightlight glowing softly in the corner. When he returned, Callie was sitting on the terrace, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her knees pulled to her chest. He joined her in silence. "You're good with him," she said after a while. "Not just patient, present. I've seen high-level executives with less focus than you have when he's talking about space robots." "He's all I've got," Flynn said. "And he's the part of me that never got broken." Callie rested her head against the railing, watching the lights flicker across the skyline. "I think I've spent so long building walls that now I don't know how to be still. I've got the life I once dreamed of, but sometimes I wonder if I built it so high up that I forgot how to let anyone in." "You let me in," Flynn said. She turned her eyes to him. "Only because you didn't try to knock." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded square of paper. "I found this in one of Finn's drawings," he said. "He made it at the center, said it was for you." Callie unfolded it. It was a crayon drawing of her, Finn, and Flynn standing in the rooftop garden. Above them, the sun had a smiley face, and a dog with giant ears stood beside them labeled Moose. Her throat tightened. "He said you're the nicest grown-up he's ever met who doesn't have jelly on their shirt," Flynn added. Callie laughed softly, pressing the drawing to her chest. Flynn's voice turned quiet. "I know this started with a subway ride and a sneeze, but whatever this is now, it's real, and I don't want to keep pretending it's not." Callie looked at him. "Neither do I." He reached across the space between them, took her hand, and held it in both of his. "I don't have much," he said, "but I'll give you everything I've got." "You already have," she whispered. Below them, the city pulsed with its usual urgency. But up here, surrounded by warmth and candlelight and the quiet breath of a sleeping child, there was no rush. Only the stillness of two people who had finally found home. Weeks later, Flynn stepped into the community garden as a dozen kids ran past him, shouting about lettuce and worms. He waved to them, then turned toward the far end of the rooftop. Callie stood there in a simple white dress, her hair windswept, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. The ceremony was small. Just the youth center team, a few close friends, and Finn, who insisted on being the ring bearer and wore a bow tie 3 sizes too big. When Flynn took Callie's hands, he didn't make a speech. He just looked at her with steady certainty and said, "You changed everything." And when she whispered, "So did you," the city faded around them. They didn't need fireworks or a ballroom or a grand stage. All they needed was each other. And the life they'd begun the second she sneezed. And he offered her a crumpled tissue, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the garden-level Café Flynn had found 3 blocks from the youth center. The place was quiet, tucked behind a florist shop, with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu that changed daily. Flynn waited at a corner table, Finn beside him with a picture book and a muffin nearly the size of his head. Callie arrived 10 minutes late, juggling a tote bag, a file folder, and a reusable coffee cup. She looked different today, hair in a loose braid, no heels, no makeup, wearing jeans and a navy sweatshirt that said "Plant kindness, grow love." Flynn raised an eyebrow as she dropped her things on the table. "You're dressed like a regular person," he said. She slid into the seat across from him. "Don't get used to it, I'm still terrifying in meetings." Finn glanced up. "Is your meeting scary?" She leaned over and whispered, "Only if someone tries to move my stapler." Flynn reached for her hand under the table. "So, we're doing this life." Callie looked at him. "We already are." There was something about the way she said it, calm, certain, that filled the space between them like warmth. Flynn had always lived hour to hour, paycheck to paycheck, waiting for something to slip. But with Callie, everything felt rooted, not perfect, but real. "I signed the lease on the new apartment," he said. "It's close enough to the center, has 2 bedrooms, and Finn already picked out a wall color. He went with something called Dinosaur Mist." Callie laughed. "That sounds suspiciously like gray." "It's suspiciously like green." Finn looked up. "It's a secret color, only dinosaurs know it." Callie leaned closer. "Then I'll need you to help me find it. I'm painting my office upstairs." Flynn raised an eyebrow. "You're redecorating," she nodded. "I'm stepping back from the firm. I'll still be running strategy, but I'm hiring a new CEO." "It's time," Flynn blinked. "You built that company." "I did, and I'm proud of it. But I don't want to be the woman who's always rushing to the next thing. I want to have time to pick Finn up from school, to show up, to breathe." He studied her face like he was seeing her again for the first time. "You really mean it," she nodded. "I've spent my life proving I could do everything on my own, but I don't want to anymore. I want a life where I can fail sometimes, laugh, sleep in, where I can love someone and not feel like it's a liability." Flynn's voice was low. "You love me," she met his eyes. "I do." He exhaled, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Callie's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a delicate ring rose gold with a single oval sapphire framed by 2 tiny diamonds. "No speeches," he said. "I just know what I want, and it's this. You, me, Finn, a life, one we build together." Callie stared at the ring, then at him. "Flynn, I know we've done this backwards," he said, "but I don't want to wait. I want to wake up next to you every day we're lucky enough to get. I want to dance with you in the kitchen while Finn throws cereal. I want the boring days, the messy ones, all of it." She reached for the ring, her fingers trembling. "Say it again." "I love you, Callie Jensen," he said, "and I want to marry you if you'll have me." Finn looked up from his muffin. "Does this mean we get a cake?" Callie laughed, tears in her eyes. "Yes, Finn, it means we get cake." She slipped the ring on, and it fit perfectly. 2 months later, they stood in a greenhouse surrounded by lemon trees and wildflowers. The ceremony was small, just family, a few close friends, and the kids from the center seated in rows of folding chairs. Finn walked Callie down the aisle with the utmost seriousness, holding her hand and wearing a tiny boutonniere on his lapel. Flynn wore a navy suit that Callie had secretly upgraded with a tailor. As she reached him, he whispered, "You look like you stepped out of a dream." She whispered back, "I stepped into one." They exchanged vows beneath a canopy of vines and soft white lights, their words simple and sure. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Finn shouted, "You may kiss the bride," before anyone else could. Afterward, they danced barefoot in the greenhouse while the kids played tag between the tables. There were no speeches, no grand declarations, just laughter, good food, and the kind of joy that didn't need an audience to be real. That night, after Finn was asleep in the spare room of their new apartment, walls painted in dinosaur mist and lined with books and space posters, Callie and Flynn sat on the balcony wrapped in a blanket, overlooking the city. Callie rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever think about how we met?" Flynn smiled. "Every day. I almost didn't take that train. I was going to order a car, but my card got flagged for suspicious activity because I bought dog treats and a blazer in the same hour." He laughed. "So Moose got us together." "Exactly." Flynn kissed the top of her head, then pulled her closer. Neither of them said anything after that. They didn't need to. The city continued humming below them, the world spinning as always. But in the quiet of that moment, two people who had spent most of their lives surviving had finally, fully arrived, together.